Hey guys, what I'm going to try to do today is show how my booster pump setup works. This setup works fine for me. There's a million ways to do it. You can have it set up with the tank, 2 tanks, 3 tanks, 4 tanks. You can use a shop compressor as long as it has a minimum of 100 psi to drive it. I do it independently. You can use it without a regulator if you're using a shop compressor. There's 100 ways. You can't just say, okay, this is the way I do it, this is the way it only can be done. There's too many different setups for people. If you've got scuba tanks, you're going to have different fittings, different pieces and parts. If you've got 1 tank, you've got to have a regular 2 tanks regulator. I mean, there's a million different ways. I'm doing 2 tanks cascaded together so the pressure is equalized between both tanks. I've got a regulator because I don't have a shop compressor. So I've got my tanks going to a T. The T, one line of the T goes to the regulator, which reduces the pressure down to 100 psi to drive the pump. The other side of the T, the line comes out of the T going into the high end of the pump where the high tank pressure is needed to be boosted and squeezed and compressed to get that high end. The basic line, the reason I have this is I need to be able to get as much air out of my tanks before I have to refill them. And with a booster pump, I can run these 4,500 psi tanks down to around 1,000 psi before I have to fill them up. If I'm shooting my Ranger at 4,500 psi, I'm only getting 1 or 2 fills at maximum pressure before the tank's already equalized to the reservoir and the gun, and now I'm doing less and less and less. If I want to do 4,500 every single time, I need to have a consistent way of keeping the air pressure the same way. So with the booster pump, I can maximize every single time. Hey, stop, you jump on that deer head, you will be skinned and tacked to the wall. Excuse me, I've got the cats down here with me. So anyways, I'm going to show you how I do it. It may not be 100% correct the way other people do it, but again, as long as I've done all the major stuff correct and taken care of safety protocol, I think we're pretty good. All my fittings are 5,000 and 6,000 psi. My hoses are 5,000 psi. So I'm within all my tolerances of burst, pressure, rate, things like that, so I don't blow myself up, or take out my eyes or something like that. So with that said, let's go play around with this. I'll show you what I do, and maybe that will answer some questions better than me typing, having to mess with a spell check every time people email me. So let's take a look at that. Here comes Mr. HollowPoint, hopping down the HollowPoint, zippity pop and look at HollowPoint go. Here's how I roll my compressor set up with my tanks. I'm so cool. I wish I had some hair on my head. Okay, what do you think, Mick? Are we ready to take some video? Oh. Alright guys, this is how Mr. HollowPoint is playing with this right now. Okay, with the booster setup. This booster pump, I have 2 tanks. I've got them cascaded together down here with 2 quick connects. uh, 6,000 psi regulator out to 100 psi. This side here goes out to the high pressure fill, which then goes to the block to the gun. This side, the 100 psi comes out because this is all you need to operate the booster pump is 100 psi. So that's why we have the regulator. This might be a bit large and overkill, but that's what I'm working with. Tigger, please get out the way. Here is your bleed valve for the block, and this is the bleed valve for the whip that goes to the gun. So with these closed, I'm going to open these up. And this is, you can see the air on both gauges. Again, you don't need all these gauges, but I just happen to already have these, so I'm trying to work in with what I've already got budget-wise. Okay, so both tanks are opened and the pressure is equalized. All right, you can do it with 1 tank, have the bleeder going, but I've got 2 tanks set up this way because I happen to have 2 tanks. The 100 psi going in to drive the pump. If you've got a regular shop compressor that does 100 psi, you can hook that right there, and then you've got your 1 tank or several tanks for your high pressure point. The way this works, when you lift this up, the air is pumped forward, it's squeezed. The high pressure air that's here, it squeezes through out to there. That's not really technical terminology, but that's the best that I know how to describe it. Excuse the monkeys, they're down in the basement to keep from running out in the garage. Okay, Tigger, out of the way. Okay, this is the smaller short whip that it comes with. I have the little longer one to play with there. Okay, now this is not really nice. Get out the way. This is aggravating. Okay, so I've already opened these tanks up, and we're only doing about 3,500 psi with the equalized pressure. I'm going to open the valve here to start filling the gun itself, and so far I haven't done any boostering. The air that's going to be filling into this gun is just the air that's coming straight from the tanks. A lot of twisting here. Right. Take the pressure off. So now that's filling up. There it is, slowly filling. That's just the vibration of the rattle. It makes a noise. Now right now it's just the air from these tanks is just coming right through here into the gun. There's no boostering or anything. Okay, now that's open, and we've got about 3,400 psi in this tank. The whole point of having the booster pump is to be able to use scuba tanks, these low pressure tanks, and boost the air up to a higher pressure. So if your gun is shooting a 4,500 psi, you can easily reach that with a 3,000 psi tank. Okay, each time we lift this up, this is going to go up several hundred psi because it's getting forced in through there, and it is a one-way, so it can't come back. One-way check valve. We lift that up, and you see the gauge is rising. Almost 500 psi, and when you let down, the pressure there pushes this back, and it's cycled again. We can raise it up. $4,500 psi off two tanks that are doing 3,400. That's how the booster pump works. To disconnect, close this baby back off. This is the line to the gun, or your pony bottle, or whatever you're trying to fill. So we close that so we're not wasting any air. Be quiet over there. And then we open the bleed valve. And this is just like if you were bleeding off your tank. It's just going to bleed the air that's down in the line. And that is done. You have successfully boosted a gun up to 4,500 psi off of 3,400 psi tanks. And a booster pump, if I'm not mistaken, this will work all the way till these are down to about 1,000, 1,500 psi. You can continue to do this, which then will save you a lot of time and effort having to constantly go back to the store and getting them refilled if you don't have your own compressor set up. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't understand all the technicality of it, but that's how it works. When I'm done, I just close everything. That's closing everything. And then just release all my air. Well, it's not something you want to do just to fill the gun once. You're going to want to be doing this on a regular basis. Any extra air in here, because you do have some locked in there. We'll open that up. No, come on. And it is done and empty. That's how it works. And then for me, I just lift this back up and roll it to wherever I need to put it for storage. Alright guys, what'd you think of that? Okay, I mean, that's just how I do it. I said there's a million different ways. I know some guys are buying the shoebox compressors, and they're using the shoebox compressor hooked up with their shop compressor then to drive enough air to actually fill their tank up to 4,500 psi. Then you can take your tank and your shop compressor and hook it to the booster. There's a million things you can do. Each person's setup is totally customized to their needs. If you look on the internet, the different pictures the different guys are doing, each one is set up slightly different depending upon the pieces and the parts that they buy. Whether you're using 1/4 fittings or 1/8 fittings, reducing bushings. I mean, there's all sorts of pieces and parts. But, you know, email and ask away. I'll share what I can. The most knowledgeable person I know with booster pumps is Jared. Jared really knows his stuff. I mean, all this came from paintballs. Paintball guys were doing this because if you think about it, every single tank has to be refilled. And if you don't have a giant compressor that fills these tanks, you have to rotate and swap your tanks out like welding guys do. So the tanks come in, they're all hooked up to a cascade system, and then they use a booster pump to fill up other tanks for the paintball guys. So it's the same principle with the air guns. You're using your tanks with a lower PSI to boost the pressure to a higher PSI. And what's nice about this is if you've only got one tank or two tanks, you can run that tank darn down in zero. Because if you only got 3,000 PSI, you're only going to get a few fills on your air rifle, and then you got to run 15, 20 miles back to the dive store or the paintball or the fireman to get your tank filled back up. This way you can get all your money out of your tank refill before you got to tank the tank back. Tank the tank, that's real good English. Take the tank back. So that's why I got it. I like the setup, and I think I'm getting, you know, squeezing every cubic inch of air out of that tank before I have to turn it off. So that's, this is Mickey, by the way. So that's how I do it. Again, questions and answers, you can send them to me, but really Jared's the person you need to talk to. Get past his Cajun, you'll understand everything perfectly. That's all for now.